special guest today, Ashley Chaney. How you doing, Ashley?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for doing this. And I was just talking to you offline about how I love that you do all these different things. I love guests that do a bunch of different things. It's so cool. I want to pick your brain, ask you a million questions, and we also do kind of similar stuff. You do an interview podcast with different people, and you also do a audio podcast. So we're gonna talk after about stuff that ideas that we have or whatever. So I am going to start playing my commercials live on the ticker, and this one here is for Ecamm, and you guys can all read it. There's a link. It's the software that I use that I'm going to show Restream. I'm going to do a little ad for Restream in a second. I also have this Geek Vibes network that I'm part of, which is very cool. They do Marvel stuff, but they also do podcasts and streams and sports and a million different things. Tia and Kanan from there are very cool. Hey guys. And then lastly, I am going to put up we have an online store, so I'm going to put up links for that. But first, let me just do this ad real quick, Ashley, and I will come back and, yeah, and we will talk.
Sounds good.
Hey everybody, this is Restream. It's a service that takes your live and sends it to multiple lives like we are today: YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. It also has a live studio. It's a very cool piece of software, and I am partnering with them. Go to the live that you're watching right now and check out their link and their referral if you want to see more about it. Okay? So, Ashley, I'm exhausted after all of these ads. Do you do ads on your show
Well
at all?
done. Well done. I don't do ads yet. There's some stuff that's in the works, but for
Okay.
right now, it's just me. But you did a great job with your ads. You've had
Okay.
some experience.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think this is number 64, so or 65. So we're up there. We've done a few podcasts. I started out
Awesome.
doing like 30, 35 audio, and then I switched to video, and I love it because I love seeing people's faces and reactions. The audio is different. It's very intimate, and you're getting inside their head, and like your eyes are closed. It's different. It's cool, but I love the video thing. It's just my thing, having been an actor and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Even when I'm recording audio podcasts, I put the video on just because there's a level of connection that happens.
yes.
And, you can see a gesture that somebody does that leads you down another line of, questioning or whatever. So power of video is very real. I'm with you.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like if you're talking and I'm listening, I can just be like, "Hey, like welcome to the show." Hey, or just it's. I love it. I love the stream thing. I
Yeah.
love the live thing too, because it has a bigger reach and more people watch it. So hello to everyone out there. I am gonna switch this ad, but I will ask you, everyone out there, if you have any questions for Ashley. We're going to talk about all of this, but she is a voiceover pro. She's an actress. She hosts things. She's a speaker, and she has a podcast. So if you want to ask her about any of those things live, go ahead. But let me start with our first question. And that is always, how did you know you wanted to get into the film and television industry? And when did you know? Like, were you a child? Were you in college? What's the story?
Yeah. Oh, the bug bit me young. The bug bit me young. So I grew up in Chesterfield, Virginia, which is about
Okay.
as far away from LA as you can get. But by happenstance, when I was about 10 years old, there was a movie, and I cannot remember the movie, so you'll have to forgive me, but with Sir Anthony Hopkins that was shooting in downtown Richmond.
Okay.
And my parents thought it would be a fun idea to, walk by and see a movie set, because certainly that was something I'd never ever seen before, as had many people in my town had not seen. So it was so cool. We walked by the set, and I really feel like it was divine intervention because there's no reason that this should have happened, but Anthony Hopkins was walking down the street and he walked right by my parents and I. And we stopped to say hello and he talked to me. And in fact, Anthony Hopkins gave me a kiss on the cheek when I was 10. It was very sweet. It wasn't weird at all.
That's
And I
cool.
said, "Oh my gosh, it's so great to meet you." And he showed me a little bit about what was going on. And it was like, that isn't something that would normally happen. And I was hooked ever since then. I knew I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to move to Hollywood. I wanted to do all the things. Um, And though it happened at age 10, it did sort of impact my schooling trajectory. And I actually applied for a specialty program out of high school. So I started learning things like video editing as a high schooler. So I started editing when I was like 14 years old. This is
Wow.
back in the day. I won't even tell you what programs it was. It was crazy.
Right.
But that actually had a huge impact on my trajectory, because when I was 18 and did, in fact, no joke, you guys, I moved to California the day I graduated high school. So you know how you wear like something under the cap and gown? I threw off the gown and got on a plane, and that was that. And I've been in LA ever since. Well, California ever since. And because I had all that training from my specialty high school, I was able to start working in media right away, which was huge. And I'm so grateful. So Anthony Hopkins, that's how I knew.
Wow, that's so cool. I have a horrible story that's kind of like that, which was the opposite and should have made me not want to be an actor. But
Oh, no.
I was going to school at Emerson College for theater, and I thought I wanted to be in movies, but was going to start in theater. And I was working at the Cleveland Circle Cinema, which is right by BC, and I was an usher. And Jack Nicholson was one of my favorite actors, and everyone in the place knew that I loved Jack Nicholson. Well, Jack Nicholson, Susan Sarandon, I believe, and Cher came to watch a screening of The Witches of Eastwick, which they were just shooting. I'm obviously old, but and he was in the theater, and they took the two guys who didn't even speak English to run the door when they came in the back door for the screening. And I never met Jack Nicholson, even though he was in the same building as me.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to tell me like a horror story about Jack Nicholson, which was going to break my heart, like that he was mean to you,
No,
or that something terrible happened. Okay, but so it's not over yet. You can still meet Jack Nicholson.
Still meet Jack Nicholson. I've met a lot of celebrities. So not that I'm like celebrity crazy, but there are a few people, De Niro, Pacino. I'll tell you a Pacino story another time. But so you do all these different things. Let's just start with the hosting, and we have a clip.
Yeah.
But tell me about the hosting, how you got into it. I even heard this woman on your podcast talk about a hosting school. Do they exist?
Exactly.
And
they do exist.
Yeah. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I have been, like I told you, when I moved to California from the time I was 18, I started working in the industry as close as I could get to a camera, which was, of course, behind the camera. Nobody's going to put a kid in front of the camera. But I always knew my dream of all dreams was always I wanted to host a travel or a talk show about food. That was always sort of what I wanted to do. I loved food, I loved travel, and I wanted to host a show. Like Travel Channel was the dream. So I thought I'll just work on all these shows in the background to get as close to that as possible. And I did for like 16 years. I have produced all these major shows and major, TV and film, like theatrical releases. It was wonderful because it taught me so much. But about 4 years ago, I was working on a movie at Paramount, and I just was like waking up in the morning, and this is going to get really heavy for a quick sec, but I was like crying before I was going into work because I hated the work so much. And it was such a shame. I loved everybody I worked with. I thought this is such a cool project, but I wasn't in the right role. And I knew it because what I was missing was that people interaction, the ability to talk to people on a people to people level and not have to be stuck behind Excel sheets and schedules and budgets. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to quit my job full time right now, but I went onto Google and I Googled how to be a host. Like that was what I Googled.
Okay.
That Google search, because of my physical location, opened up this page from Maria Menounos, who's this, as you probably know, this entertainment reporter who I had, wanted to emulate for a long time. And I'm like, what? What is this? And she was running a school it was a school and learning platform, totally free for all hosts. And you basically sent in an audition tape and you got to practice for free at their school. And I was accepted after sending in my audition tape, and you have to go through several sort of verticals of training before they put you on air. But it was amazing because I learned so much from that school. And then once you're in the network, you can do these things like you can do red carpets for them. They get you out on actual real live red carpets. Again, you have to take a lot of training to get there, but it's possible. And so that was really how my hosting career started, was a simple Google search that led to this studio that happened to be a couple miles down the road for me. So I think it was about curiosity first and foremost,
right.
and then And then location, like being in the spot where this was the hotbed, and I knew that I needed to be in LA, so that it all kind of came together at the right place, time, and moment, and sort of the rest is history from the hosting perspective. From there, after I built my credentials and experience with AfterBuzz, other networks started asking me to cover red carpets for them, and other hosting opportunities presented themselves from that body of work.
Okay. And did you meet Maria?
Oh, yes, Maria is fantastic.
Yeah.
She's very, I mean, if I could say anything about Maria, she is so kind and generous. And like the only reason she's doing this is she didn't have these opportunities when she was coming up in the hosting world. And so she has fully just committed to helping develop the community around her. In light of recent times with COVID, they're kind of on a hiatus right now, which is everybody's sort of having a bit of a recalibration period. But love Maria. I've gotten to interview her on carpets before, and it's so fun because she comes right over to her proteges, and I definitely consider myself one of her mentees, or proteges is a very nice word. I don't know if I would call myself a protege, but one of her underlings.
Yes.
She's fantastic.
Yes. You learn stuff from her. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I talked last week with this woman, Jenny Curtis, about fear and about how you have to be brave as an actor and eventually a host. And we talked a little bit offline about this, about how do you have the gall, for a better word, to just walk up to a celebrity like a Clint Eastwood or a Maria Menounos, or like you talk to some Yellowstone people that I love that show, and just and have a conversation with them without being like nervous and shaky, and how do you get that confidence?
Yeah, well, so there's this answer is twofold, and there's some technical skills that you can work on so that you feel confident in your technical ability to handle an interview. There's some very practical tips there, which I'll share in a moment. But before you ever get there, the inner work is what needs to happen first. And this is so true for actors. This is so true for anybody who needs to put themselves out there in any kind of way that's public facing. Because if you don't have a really strong sense of who you are, and not just who you are, but loving yourself for exactly who you are, that sounds woo-woo. I know I've been in California a long time, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Because I started acting, taking all these acting classes and, learning all the technical things I could. And I had to quit acting because I thought, I just want to go be myself. I don't want to pretend to be someone else. I just want to go be myself. Well, then I started hosting, when all you have to do is be yourself. And that's when I had to look in the mirror and go, oh my God, do I like myself as a person?
Yes.
And there was a lot of work and digging through there. So it's a roundabout answer to your question of some of the practical side, which I'll get to in a second. But really, truly, all actors, their super skill is this vulnerability and this ability to show up and just be who they are, because we sniff it out when they're not being themselves, when they're trying to
being
put
authentic.
on
Yeah.
It's so true, and it's the hardest work I think that any performer will ever do is getting in touch with who they are and then loving that person once they discover who they are. So that's the woo-woo side of it.
Right.
But
wait, hold on a second. What is the woo-woo? I don't know what the woo-woo is. Is that like the juju?
The woo, the mental side.
Okay.
Of California, everybody gives us kind of flack for being all woo-woo and mystical, but it's real, and I think it's really important. It's been the biggest part of my journey in any part of my career development, production, talent, etc. And it's really important, guys. So listen, I couldn't advocate more that everybody have a therapist, especially actors or performers of any kind. We're going through it. We face rejection at a monumental rate. I mean, the rejection is so real. So you have to be okay with that.
Okay, so tell us the practical side, but I always have a million questions. You'll have to just bear with me. I'm going to ask you after you do the practical side. I have a question. Go ahead. What is the practical side of the hosting?
Well, the practical side is very, first of all, you say, how do you have the courage to just go up to so-and-so? Excuse me. And the first thing I'll say is, let me just dispel that that's not really how it happens. I mean, you are given a tip sheet from the PR people. If we're covering a show like Yellowstone, for example, before I ever arrive at that red carpet, I have been briefed. I have been given a PR tip sheet. I know who's supposed to show up at the carpet. They don't always show. And prior to the show, I've done a good bit of research. Now, truth be told, I actually didn't watch Yellowstone. I didn't know about the show. So all I could watch was clips of the show or other interviews, but I did my research. And that's huge because like you researched for this podcast, some things about me. It makes it easier to have a
Yeah.
conversation when your belly is loaded up with a little bit of information about the person you're speaking with. Guys, this is true in every situation. You do not have to be on a red carpet to be an informed conversationalist. Like, you should know. And if you're meeting someone in the grocery store, lead with curiosity first and foremost. But if you're going into a job interview, you wouldn't show up unresearched,
Unprepared. Yeah.
Yeah. So it starts with the research. Then there's some very practical, breathing techniques that I do before I ever get behind a microphone. And I can run you through some of those if you want. It's silly, and we're all going to look silly.
No,
but we
it's
can do it.
not. It's not silly because I do that too. I do this weird thing, and I probably haven't told anybody this before, but before I would do an audition, I would kind of smile in the mirror and be like, "Come on, go get them. This is going to be fun." Like, it's like psyching yourself up because you do
Yes.
have to go in front of, and sometimes it's these huge people, and you're like, "Oh my God, if I think about it too much, I'm going to freeze," you know? So I
Yeah.
have to like kind of
Yeah.
psych yourself up.
It's so funny because we go into those rooms, those casting rooms, and we're like, "Oh my God, I hope they like me," or I hope they pick me. And the thing that they're looking for on the other side is, I hope we find someone great. We have to remember that they're actually rooting for us, and they
Yes.
actually want to see the best thing. And I'm kind of mixing worlds between the acting world and the hosting world, but the same is true even on the hosting world. The other side of the interview just wants it to go great. Like, nobody's
Right.
out to hurt anybody, and I think knowing that going into it is really, really helpful. Like, because I think we get ourselves wrapped up in self-judgment, and we think, I have to be great, I have to be perfect. What if they don't like me? And the other side of the camera, or the other side of the interview, or the other side of the room is also thinking, oh my God, I hope this goes well. I need to look good for my boss. I need to make sure that I represent the film well, or I need to cast the right actor so that the producer thinks I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's everybody's worried about their own selves
Right.
in a way. So that's, yeah, some of the mental stuff. You want to do some warm-ups with me?
Sure. I haven't done them in years. I just did a short film a couple years ago that I wrote and directed and acted in, but I haven't done anything for a while. But go ahead.
This is for anybody who is going to be, recording or talking. Anytime you're using your mouth and you want to sound articulate. So water, yeah, first wet the whistle. And then this is a really simple one. We'll just do maybe two of these. But okay, so
Okay.
you're going to take a deep breath, go. And when you take that deep breath in, scrunch your shoulders up to your ears. And then you're going to breathe out, and we're going to vocalize the exhale pretty loud. So
Okay.
you want to get as deep into your belly as possible. And you'll feel yourself relax. This is great to do before you ever need to do something, important, a meeting, an interview, whatever. We'll do one more. Up to your shoulders, and then out. Make a weird noise when you can.
Okay. Okay.
That kind of shakes out the willies. And then I like to do lip trills. So have you ever done lip trills?
No.
So it's that weird sound if you make your lips go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that with pitch. So yeah, you look ridiculous, you sound ridiculous,
Yeah.
but your face is a muscle, and it's a tool, and it's part of what you use, certainly as a performer, but even, wherever you are showing up in life. This mouthpiece is so important. So I warm it up before I ever do it. I do lots more, but that's one of the easiest. Throw some lip trills in before you need
Right.
to have an important meeting.
Podcasts are hard and speaking is hard. I have a couple other questions I want to ask you, but I remember listening to your podcast, which was just this morning, and thinking, wow, this woman is very articulate. She seems very smart. But it's so important to be articulate because I'll be honest, I fumble words sometimes. And if you talk really quickly, sometimes you fumble some words. But some people like yourself and this woman, Jenny, because she has like 4 podcasts, like, don't miss a word. And I'm like, how do you not miss a word? How do you not fumble a word? Because you're talking for a long time.
Well, I think there's a couple things at play here. One, practice. I mean, I have been talking for a living for a while now, so it's a lot of practice. But it's also, I don't think that Jenny or myself don't make mistakes. I think that if we do make a mistake, we do our best to edit it out. Like, mistakes happen, absolutely.
Right, that's true.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think people fall a lot and they fumble when, particularly, I always go back to loading your belly with information. If they're nervous, they don't know what they're talking about, and they kind of try and find the patches, and so they'll. I notice that when I make the most mistakes is when I'm reaching or when I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about, or whatever. So I think just remembering, first of all, we are all human. We all do fumble, and the power of editing, the power, we don't know what's been cut.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk, because we have millions of things to talk about, and I'll go through this quickly, but I just have a couple of questions. So, like, rejection for me, and I'll give you a break from talking too. Rejection. So I right away got into several plays in college in big parts, and it was like, wow, okay, I'm going to be a movie star. Here we go. And then after college, I did some commercial auditions, and it was for like Levi's jeans and some big things, and a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, right? And so theater, I get the parts. I'm always getting the parts in theater. But anytime I try to do commercials or a film audition, not happening. And, I'm not tall. I'm 5'8". There's guys who are like 6'3" and ripped and all this kind of stuff. All I'm saying is, like, I felt like the commercial film was like looking for like big, giant, meaty people. No, you're saying no. I
No,
just felt like
I'm shaking my head no.
Okay.
Because, and I don't want to cut you off because I want to hear so much more about your story, but I can tell already that you feel more confident when you walk into a theater audition. You've done theater, you've booked it, you feel worthy, you know that you can do this, you know you've done it before. That knowing, that confidence, that self-worth when you walk into a theater audition is so obvious, and it's delicious. It's what casting directors want to hold on to. It's what they're looking for. What has booked the job, and by the way, commercial, I can speak to this on so many levels, but in commercial, they are not looking for the perfect looking person. More than ever, commercials have swayed the absolute opposite.
Yeah, recently,
and they are looking. It's been recent, yeah, but we're looking for real people and real confidence. So knowing that, first of all, it is a numbers game. You are not going to book every commercial that you audition for.
Right.
Plain and simple. Because there's so many of them. And, you couldn't even if you wanted to. So knowing that rejection is part of it, but walking in and knowing, like, you are, again, here I go with the woo-woo, you are totally enough to book that commercial. Everything that you have and you bring to the table is more than enough. They just want to see your take on it. But if you go in, Shawn, trying to be Cody, the 6'3" linebacker, they will sniff it out. It is not going to be real, and it's not going to land with them.
Right.
So, being as much Shawn as you can, and knowing, I think having that confidence that comes from, first of all, having done the work. So like after you book your first commercial, your next audition, that next audition, by the way, will be golden, because it's like you're filled with this confidence of like, I can do this. I'm great. I got this. So it's being able to simulate that confidence walking in, that worthiness it's what they're all after.
Okay, so that's great advice. Thank you so much. I haven't, honestly, besides making some short films, I haven't done it for 20 years because I had 3 kids. But yeah, I think it definitely, definitely felt that it was more of a meat market back then. Maybe it's switched, and maybe I can do some dad NyQuil ads now. But
you definitely can. You definitely can. As with anything,
right.
You would train just like you would, you would take some classes so that yes, the times have changed, and here's what they're looking for now. Like, here's the industry standard now. If it's been a while since you've been in the game, yeah, I'm not saying walk in without a class under your belt or training.
Right.
I still train to this day. I take classes and workshops all the time. It's important. That's my work.
And that's what I've heard from I've interviewed a lot of film directors, writers, and actors, that they met people in these workshops that they ended up working on a movie with, they ended up booking a commercial with, or getting a job with. A lot of the networking happens in the classes and the workshops. Is that true?
Yeah. It's definitely true. It's also, and I know you're out in Atlanta, right? You're in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually a whole new hot spot, really, which I can't. You could definitely speak to the Atlanta region more than I can. It's popping. It's going off. But out in LA, the workshops serve a couple of functions. One, when you talk about networking, I like to really remind people that networking is not about meeting people to see what they can do for you. You are, as a performer, out here in this jungle, you need people that get it, that are your community, that are your network of not of what people can do for you, but of like people that get it, that are in this with you, because it is tough and it will beat you down, and you need those people like as your system, your support system.
Yeah.
So when you're networking, I just want to remind people it's not about what you could do for somebody or what they can do for you. Sure, there's some practicality to that, but like make those genuine connections first. It will take you so much farther than some, vapid connection that you met because you saw, oh, this person works at this company, better be friends with them. I just don't buy that. LA is too. There is an opportunity for toxicity if you allow it, and it's that way. And then also what the casting, those workshops really serve is it's almost like a validation, like a check mark, like, oh, you've trained with this person. I know that they do good work. And so I know that I can trust you to show up on set or show up in an audition room and do the right, I know that you're going to know your stuff.
Right,
This teacher, yada, yada.
I get it.
Yeah. And also working the muscle. It's so important to always be working those muscles.
Yes. And let me ask you, before we go on to the hosting reel, which we've been trying to for 10 minutes, but we both can talk. Both of us can talk. Is there an ideal for you? Because I ask this to a lot of guests, like you being in, the new, for lack of a better actor, Brad Pitt movie or Chris Pratt movie, like in You're the Lead. Is that the goal, or is the goal to host your own TV show like a Jimmy Kimmel? What is the goal? What would be ideal?
Yeah. The ideal is still the same as like young little Ashley. I would love to host a travel show and travel the world, eat really good food, and talk to people about it. That's still the end goal. So over acting, my acting experience is not that robust, but my hosting experience is really kind of where I feel my strongest. It's where I feel the most myself. And so I would definitely love that. Travel Channel, man. Hire me.
Yes, Travel Channel. Hire her, please. Have you seen The Blonde Abroad? The website?
No, I haven't.
There's a website called The Blonde Abroad, and she worked in advertising. I think at this point she's like 28, but she has a huge company, and she just started traveling with her boyfriend and posting on Instagram, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then she goes to all these resorts all over the world and reviews them. And she has all these tutorials on how to do a blog, how to do a food video, and she's eating the food, and she's going to the nightclubs, and she's doing the Travel Channel thing. But she has a staff of like 20 people. It's just something to check out. She is making a lot of money, and it's all on the internet. Nothing's on television, but she's one of the top bloggers for travel. And I looked at a lot of travel blogs because I'd love to do that also. So.
Well, you raise a really good point there, that it doesn't have to be traditional. I say Travel Channel because, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But you're right, that the internet there's so much happening there that it doesn't have to be this traditional sort of media. So right. I love that. I am checking out The Blonde Abroad. Blonde Abroad.
Definitely check it out. Okay, so we're going to go to your hosting reel. Is there anything you want to say before it? It's going to play full screen with audio and we'll be muted. So do you want to talk about anything in it, or?
No, I think this is just a small collection of a couple of the people that I've chatted with. And check it out.
Here we go. This is Ashley's hosting reel.
Hey AfterBuzzers, Ashley Chaney here tonight for a super fun event. So we're here, of course, to talk about your new late night show, which not much has been released. What can you tell us?
It's not some super secret. It's just we're too dumb. We don't really even know.
What's it like to work 6 seasons with an amazing both cast on screen and obviously creators like Darren Star?
Oh, it's just been joyful.
Where are you stashing the tissues? Because just interviews tonight, I have been waterworks.
Oh, every year.
You look so amazing. I have to start with that.
Thank you.
200, how does that feel?
Well, it feels pretty good.
How many languages do you actually speak?
I speak 2.
You speak 2?
Yeah.
Italian or French?
No, it's English and French.
English and French, but you did Italian so well.
Thank you.
If you had the opportunity to do something differently in your life or have a do-over, is there a moment or a time in your life that you would go back and do differently?
I would start the Rogaine way earlier.
That is so cool. You got to talk to all those people
Yeah.
It's very cool. So I just want to do a quick thing. Sorry. I just want to do a shout out to Kaylee Waters, who talked to you and booked you as a guest here, because I probably wouldn't have found you. She is a woman who went to Emerson, the same college as me, and she just contacted me and said, "Hey, do you need any help with your podcast?"
Amazing.
And I was like, I can't pay you any money. I'm not making a lot of money on it right now. She's like, "No, I just want to help out." So thank you, Kaylee. And there's actually another woman from Turner that I never worked with that also contacted me, because I interview a lot of Turner people, because I worked there for 14 years. But her name is Bonnie Rosemarin. And Bonnie, thank you also for helping. It's incredible that I have these two people who are like marketing people and production people, and they're just, "Hey, do you want help?" I'm like, "Sure, yes," but this is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies. And props to you for being, putting out a show that's so good that people want to just reach out and help you. I hope you're recognizing your own.
I am just
strengths
so
there.
happy about it. I just love doing this. This is just so much fun. And honestly, I tried to do a true crime podcast, and I'm still doing it. And it is this is spontaneous. Let's put on the headphones. Let's talk. And I've spent 30 hours, and I'm still
Yeah.
like halfway through it. It is so much work, because you're doing like a little movie. Things like
Oh,
an
yeah.
hour plus, and so many details and so much research. It's totally, totally different. But I like this more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of storytelling and editing. Whew.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So the podcast, let's just segue there. Let's talk about, it's the Real Food podcast.
Dear food. It's
Dear
like a
food.
love letter to food. Yeah.
I love the podcast. I love, I mean, it was informative. I love food. So you have a fan already. I've already told my girlfriend about it. I said, "You have to listen to us. It's great," because we're both crazy about food, and we cook all the time, go to restaurants all the time. Tell us about the podcast and how it started.
Yeah, and just like you, I mean, I love every time I get to sit down and talk with someone about food, which is of course what the podcast is about. It's like the best hour of my day, because I could talk about, in fact, I do talk about food with almost everyone. And the reason that the podcast came about is because I was doing all these red carpets like you just saw, and really enjoying it because I like talking to people. But what I found was that from doing those red carpets, there was still just something missing a little bit. And I think the key was I knew what I had to talk about. I was there and I was supposed to talk about this thing, this show that was coming out, or this movie that was coming out, but it wasn't necessarily what I really wanted to be talking about. So like in a lot of interviews, I would find that, people were kind of regurgitating these PR approved answers, and it was fine. And they're so generous and wonderful. And you could every once in a while get some pieces of personality out of these interviews that are really to service a purpose.
Right.
But whenever I could get the chance to ask a celebrity about food, that was like my go-to hosting question that I'd have in my back pocket if I had the time, or if, let's say an interview was sort of stalling out and I wasn't, maybe the celebrity was nervous, or I wasn't really getting them to open up. If I could ask them about food, if I could get them to start talking to me about food, their face opened up, their guards dropped. I mean, literally physical body changes would happen.
Right.
And I would get this like happy person who wanted to talk to me about food. And I was like, I'm onto something. This is, it's what I want to talk about all the time anyway. So Dear Food podcast was born. And each week we talk about a different food, usually with a guest, and we really get to the emotional side of food. So yes, there's like some cooking tips. You might hear some recipes here and there, but it's really, the reason that food is so easy to talk about is because it's this tie-in with everybody in the world. We all have this shared, we have to eat to survive, yes. But it's also this thing that, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody that doesn't have an emotional story about food, or this dish that they ate when they were a kid that, when they eat it, it brings them right back and it makes them feel comforted. And that is so powerful. And I think that's this human connection that I love exploring, and I love eating too. So it's kind of this perfect marriage. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. And it's cultural too, right? So everybody has different cultures. Like I'm Irish and Italian, and I remember my Italian great-grandmother actually in the kitchen, 80 years old, with a cigarette butt hanging out of her lip and she's stirring the gravy for hours just because she wanted something to do. And it's like, Grandma, don't let the cigarette go in the gravy, you know?
Right?
So
And you remember that so vividly. And she never got ashes in there, I bet, did she?
she didn't. She was always away. I mean, nobody wants, at this point now, I'd be kind of grossed out by someone cooking with a cigarette in their mouth. But yeah, it's definitely cultural.
Is there a dish that that sort of epitomizes your childhood, or like this thing that your family makes specifically?
It really does. My grandmother, Helen O'Brien, was Irish, and she used to always make pies. So she had 5 kids, and they had kids, so it was like 28 people at her house. Everybody had to go for Thanksgiving and Christmas. There was no excuses. You had to be there. They would come to your house and get you and bring you there if you didn't show up. My grandmother and grandfather, and she always made key lime pies and lemon meringue pies and apple pies and peach cobbler. And it was like, okay, what are the pies? You know, because you knew it was turkey or you knew it was ham and potatoes or whatever, but what were the pies? Because the pies were always different. So yeah, I mean, I definitely walk through a Publix or a Whole Foods and I kind of stop at the pies and go, should I get one of those? You know, because I remember my grandmother. Yeah.
That's so special. Do you remember if she made the crusts herself?
She did and she didn't. So sometimes she would actually buy them, and sometimes she would, but a lot of times she was showing me how to cook. So I just have a little aside here for a second. Have you ever thought about doing a cooking show? Because I have.
Have I ever thought about it? Yeah, of course. The thing is, I'm not a chef, and and I don't need to be. I love cooking, and I cook all the time. But I always thought, this is worthiness here. See, me preaching my own thing. I'm like, I'm not a chef enough to have a cooking show.
Aren't
so instead
you
I'll talk about food.
or if you can't do it yourself, you do the show and the guest brings their dish, and maybe it's already made. And then I was just looking at the two of us here. What if you had a cooking show where we're like, I'm going to show you how to make apple pie, my grandmother's apple pie, and you're in your kitchen and I'm in my kitchen, or the guest or whatever. So the woman today, the Armenian woman, I forget what she made, but she's in her kitchen and you're in your kitchen, and she's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to make this baklava or whatever it is. I don't know what she was cooking. And then you both make it in your kitchens, but you're live streaming it or something, or maybe you record it. I don't know. I just thought.
I love that. I love
idea.
that. For live streaming, we'd have to pull some TV magic, unless it was something that could be made live in under an hour. So we'd either have to have like the finished product, or because some things take quite a while.
Yeah, but you could fake it. You could have it already cooked, and then just be like, okay, you put it in here, and here it is. Like.
I love that. I love that.
Stuff. Or
This
it
is
could
on
already
DL.
be. It could already be cooked. Everything's done, and maybe you eat it together.
Yeah,
and
I
talk
love
about
that.
it.
These are great
I
ideas.
don't know, because you love it
Seriously.
so much. If you're not gonna, I mean, right now with COVID, you can't travel.
Right, exactly.
But
This is my way of getting into, next week's episode. It's Chinese food, so we're going to Hong Kong, through the podcast. And so I love that, the idea of cooking and making together. For your listeners only, I will let you know that we are in the process of compiling a cookbook, because every episode someone indefinitely basically shares a recipe.
Okay.
So we are making a cookbook of all the recipes that have been shared so far. But you're right, we haven't made any of them together. So that's a really unique idea. I like it.
Yeah, I just have crazy ideas. But let's.
Crazy good. They're good.
Yeah, I love food. So voiceover. I'm curious about voiceover because I do a podcast, but how did you get it? How do you do all these different things? My mind is just kind of blowing up here, but how did you get into voiceover? It was just along the way, and you do it once in a while, or is it like a steady thing?
So it's a very specific path. And again, it was sort of, I don't mean to keep saying like divine intervention, but through my production experience, I've worked on many, many animated projects, mostly animated projects. And the way animation works is that you build, it's not like you shoot it, you build everything in CG in the computer. And the animators have to have something to animate their faces to. So they'll record what's called scratch audio, which is basically temporary acting
Yep.
until they go in and hire the, multi-million-dollar celebrities that are getting paid. They're obviously not going to want to pay them time and time again while the animators suss out what works and stuff like that. So I was basically the temp actor for all these famous actors that would come in and re-record the dialogue later.
Right.
And so the first couple of times I did it, I was garbage, but then they would just pull people from the production offices basically to say, okay, you be the hero today, you be the villain, da-da-da.
Right.
And we record something for the animators. After, I don't know, a couple of times, word got around the studios that I was a skilled voice actor. I had no idea how to do this. I didn't know what I was doing. But
Right.
the director, through working with the directors and they would pull performances out of me, I started to really enjoy it. And so really the pathway was through animation. From there, I've always done scratch from everything that I've done. From there, I decided to take classes because training is so important to really get better. And after a couple of classes, I decided, okay, well, I'll record a voiceover demo because that's what they tell me I need to do. So I recorded a voiceover demo for commercials, and there's all different verticals of animation, of voiceover, which we can talk about if you'd like as well. But so I focused on commercial because I have that clean kind of mom sound, and recorded a demo with a studio up. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time. And from there, I sent that out, and that's what would get me auditions and ultimately bookings. So voiceover is something I do to this day. You can't see it, but behind me, I've got my voiceover booth right here. I love using my voice. It is my favorite thing. I'm so grateful for it. It's been, especially throughout COVID, this wonderful work source of revenue for me. It's been amazing.
Right. And that's another question I have. So the hosting is not happening right now. So you're doing more voiceover than the hosting, and the acting
Definitely.
really has been happening. The commercial shoots are just starting again.
Correct.
So it's
You're
mostly
exactly right.
voiceover is what you've been doing during COVID, or?
Voiceover is pretty much all I've been doing during COVID. That said, I did book a hosting. I do have a hosting gig. First one though, since the entire of COVID,
Right.
at the end of this month. But it was real slow there. But voiceover was, something I'd already been doing. So it wasn't like I just decided in the
Right,
middle
for
of COVID.
COVID, right.
Yeah.
You'd already done it.
So, I have a setup and I have, connections and representation and all that good stuff. But it's such a joy. And I will say, no matter what you want to do, whether it's hosting, whether it's voiceover, whether it's commercial acting, training is important. You can't expect to be successful at something without getting some training.
Right. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, about how do you teach speaking classes, or you do? Okay.
No, I don't teach speaking classes. I teach a lot people how to speak, like how to
Okay.
show up, how to particularly embrace online video and online speaking and showing up online, because that's our world right now. It wasn't so much a focus on online prior to COVID, but now it really is. It's something that everybody, I know you are speaking mostly to people in the TV and film, entertainment industry, but it affects everybody. There's mom and pop shops that have to go on a Facebook Live and literally don't know how to do it, and let alone where to put the lights and the camera and the, things like that.
Right.
And then for the more advanced performers and stuff, I teach these warm-ups and how to present yourself from a mental and physical perspective, and sort of, to be successful in those various, whether it's commercial acting, voiceover, hosting, and that's all just from experience. That's all what I've taken through this world, and I love getting to help other people.
Right. And is that mostly through Zoom, or is that how you teach it? Is Zoom or something like that?
These days, yeah. Whether Zoom, Skype, StreamYard, whatever the platform may be, but showing up digitally now is the way. Yeah, I haven't had a in-person anything in over 6 months. So, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this question, and then we'll go to advice, and then we'll talk about how everybody can find you and your websites.
Sure.
So big celebrities, like getting back to Jack Nicholson again. I think Jennifer Lawrence was at the Academy Awards. She had just won the Academy Award for Silver Linings Playbook, and she went over. She was just walking through the backstage, and Jack Nicholson grabbed her, and he was like, "Hey, kid, good job." And she was like, blah, 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 because like she, like myself, would just freak out if she met. There's like 3 people I would freak out, but everybody else is fine. Did you ever interview someone and you were speechless, or just it knocked your socks off to talk to them or anything like that?
You know, it's funny. I think we talked about it a little bit before we went live, but the idea of getting starstruck is not really something that jives well with a red carpet host. So I don't really get starstruck, thankfully, because it would make it really difficult to do my job. That said, if I were to meet Jennifer Aniston, who I have not yet met, I think that that would be very nerve-wracking for me. She's someone I've always wanted to meet. She's someone I've always loved and admired, and I haven't met her yet. So that would be one that I'd be very nervous for. But there have been celebrities. Well, I wouldn't say I've been starstruck, but I got to interview Drew Barrymore, and that was absolutely just fantastic. Not from I was starstruck, but from fantastic from the point of, oh my God, she's a real person. She's lovely. And I get to meet her, and this is so cool,
Right.
and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so lucky to be talking with this person who's had really amazing life experiences. You know, that was a fun one.
Right. And I interviewed this guy, Gary Friedman, who worked at TCM. He's not there anymore, but he's there for 20 years, and he did all these interview shows with Robert Osborne, with the big stars coming like Alec Baldwin and Sally Fields. And he said the same thing. The bigger the star, the nicer they are. And they're just
100%.
good people. And they don't, like Sally Fields parked her own Prius. Like she didn't want to put on makeup. She's like, I got my makeup on. So do you have that experience? Like the bigger the star, the nicer they are?
1,000,000%. I could not agree more. Yes. They don't have anything to prove. They don't need to be anything other than, just
Right.
exactly who they are. That has been my experience, top down, left to right, across the board. Yes. And I mean, case in point, excuse me, with Drew Barrymore. She was so lovely. And I think probably one of the bigger names that I've interviewed. And she, she was a doll and absolutely kind to everybody and generous with her answers and with her time. She was lovely.
Right. Was there like a comedian who just cracked you up? I know you interviewed David Spade, but was there someone who just like made you laugh so much that you almost couldn't do the interview because they just kept joking or anything like that? Who?
Yes. Well, yeah, David Spade was hilarious. Yes, he was a tough one. Cracking up to get through the interview. Let's see. Jordan Klepper is a comedian on Comedy Central. He's really funny. He was very smart though. He was not tough to get through, but he was making me laugh. And then there was another guy. The gals from Nikki Glaser.
Oh my God, yeah. She's so funny.
She had me a little verklempt because they are so quick-witted and they speak so fast.
Yeah.
Eliza Schlesinger, she was there that night as well. And it was almost like, wow, these women are so smart that I was a little intimidated because they think so quickly.
Right.
So,
right.
But it was great.
Was that a roast? Were you at a roast?
No, I wasn't. I was at a charity event that particular, the night with the gals, with Eliza Schlesinger and Nikki Glaser, there was a myelymphoma charity event hosted by Raymond Serrano. Everybody Loves Ray.
Okay.
And so they were all there to perform charity, like a bits for charity.
Okay.
So it wasn't a roast, but they were each doing like a small set for a charity event. It was great. It was so fun. And I got to stay and watch the show.
Oh, very cool. All right. So we're going to we're about 50 minutes. We're going to wrap it up. Can you give a young actor advice, or even someone who wants to switch careers, or maybe someone who's like, I want to do voiceover? I know it's 1,000 things to go over because you do so many things, but in general, what would your advice be to someone who wants to do similar things to you in the industry?
Yeah. Before we get into any of the technical, I'll always lead with the woo-woo. So why do you really want to be getting into the industry, and really examine that? And is this work that you love? Because it's going to be hard. It is going to be hard, way more challenging than any other career where the path is a little bit more defined. You're going to face rejection at a monumental level. So are you sure you want to be doing this? Do you really want to be doing it? And if the answer is absolutely yes, I can't imagine doing anything else. This is it. I don't even know what else I would do. Then green light, go ahead and start training. Train your, I don't know if we can curse, but train your arse off.
Yeah.
In whatever the category is that you want to be doing. If it's TV acting, get your butt into class there. If it's commercial acting, take classes for that. If it's voiceover, take classes for that. Train, so that you take that confidence and that knowing and that self-worth into every audition, into every project, into every room you walk into. And then from there, it's just persistence and perseverance. Just keep going. That's it. Just keep going.
Yeah, don't give up. Do you feel like, actually the guy I was talking about before, the voiceover guy, Bob Juergens, has the 10,000 hour rule, which I've never heard of, but it's the idea that you can only get good at something if you spend 10,000 hours on it. Do you feel that's close to being correct, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, 10,000 hours is a lot, and I can't say that I like log my hours per se, but yes, the point is yes, keep going and keep logging all those. Another way to look at it is, and maybe this will shift your perspective for some of those rejections, but collect those rejections and look at it as like a stamp in your passport and like, okay, I must receive 100 rejections before I get a yes. And it changes your relationship with those no's, because it's like, oh yeah, this is part of, I have to get these. It's like qualifying tiers. That really helped me with the rejection every day. It was like, oh, got another rejection. I'm that much closer. Oh, got another rejection. So those kind of, it's similar to those 10,000 hours. Yeah.
I'm curious how you feel about this, because I was an actor for over 10 years and dealt with a lot of rejection. I have I'm wired in a very strange way that I have a lot of confidence, and I probably shouldn't, or I'm trying not to be too egotistical here, but like when people reject me and when I don't get a part or when I didn't get a role or just in jobs, whatever it was, I had a teacher in art school said maybe I shouldn't be a painter, an actor in acting school saying maybe you shouldn't be an actor. And I just automatically think you're wrong. Like, you're absolutely wrong.
Great.
I should be an actor, and you don't know what you're talking about. So, I mean, I know some people struggle with that. Is that something, you think about as an actor, or you talk about in your training, having that ability to let things roll off you? Because I've seen comedians get depressed after a set. I've seen actors get depressed after being rejected or just be down for days. And it's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like you said, it's another check in your passport. It's another step towards where you're going.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I love what you said. This knowing you're wrong. That's a knowing that comes deep within your belly. And the truth of the matter is, if someone tells you something as crappy as you shouldn't be an actor or you shouldn't be a XYZ fill in the blank, that's their baggage, not yours. So like, never, ever, nobody else gets to have an opinion on what you are deciding you want to do with your career. Now, you have to also decide that in the face of rejection and in the face of a crummy set, like, I'm not saying that maybe your comedian didn't have a bad set. Maybe they did. But the difference is taking that knowing that you had a bad set or knowing that you got rejected at an audition and it wasn't for you, going, okay, that role wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. On to the next. Being able to critically analyze, okay, why did that set flop? Not, oh my God, it's because I'm terrible and I'm the worst. It's, where can I adjust? And then choosing to persevere. That's the biggest decision of all this, is choosing that, wow, yep, that was tough. Yep, that sucked. Damn, I really wanted that job. And you know what? I got to keep going. Like, choosing to persevere and get better at your craft, not in an unhealthy self-hatred way, but like, okay, did I flop that audition because I wasn't prepared and I didn't know my sides? I hadn't read, I wasn't prepared? Or was it just, I showed up to that and did my best and I did everything I could and I didn't get it? Okay, that just wasn't for me.
Right.
So it's such a mental game above all of this. It's all mental.
You have to be super strong to be an actor, because it is just brutal. And I've interviewed a lot of actors who are like, 10 years, 20 years went by, and then they got the part that was the lead. They did these little bit parts or these little background acting. And So sometimes it can take a lot of perseverance, but this has been great, Ashley. Thank you so much. If you could tell everybody that's watching where they can find your website and your class and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's been so fun talking. Thanks, Shawn. I know I'm a chatterbox. I love talking about these things.
Yeah.
If you want to learn some more about, how I can help you, maybe go to my website, ashleychaney.com. I can help you there with, some of the technical performance skills. And then if you want to listen to my podcast, which is my truest labor of love, and, if you like food and want to hear people talking about food, that's Dear Food Podcast. And you can find that pretty much wherever you get your podcasts.
Very cool. Thank you so much. We're just going to, in a couple months, this is going to be an audio podcast, so everybody look out for that. And I will let you know, Ashley, when that happens. And we're just going to chat for a minute offline, so don't hang up. But thank you, and thanks everybody for watching, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.